In the shadow of skyscrapers, a 6-year-old girl with crutches watched silently as millionaires laughed over champagne. No one noticed her brilliance until her tiny hand saved a fortune in seconds, shocking everyone present. But no one imagined what would come next. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more incredible stories that will touch your heart. The spring air in Central Park carried laughter from the elite gathering, but all Lily could focus on was the pain in her stomach. 6 years old, with auburn hair hanging in messy strands around her delicate face, she balanced precariously on her weathered crutches, watching the buffet table from a distance. 3 days without a proper meal had made her desperate enough to approach this private corporate picnic, hoping for leftovers or a kind soul. Can you believe the Westbrook acquisition? A man in an expensive suit laughed, champagne sloshing in his glass. $800 million for a company barely worth half that. No one noticed the small girl with the twisted legs inching closer. She was invisible to them, just another unfortunate sight in New York City, best ignored. Lily's eyes, however, weren't fixed on their food anymore, but on something far more interesting. An open laptop abandoned on a table, while its owner, a young man with piercing blue eyes and a designer watch worth more than most cars, argued heatedly on his phone several feet away. The screen displayed complex financial projections, numbers that should have meant nothing to a child, but Lily wasn't ordinary. Her mind processed patterns and equations with natural brilliance that had never been discovered or nurtured. "They're making a terrible mistake," she whispered to herself, spotting a calculation error that would cost millions. Without thinking, her small fingers began typing rapidly, recalculating formulas, restructuring the acquisition model. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" The laptop's owner, Alexander Reed, 30-year-old financial prodigy and CEO of Reed Investments, had returned. His voice cut through the party chatter as he lunged toward Lily, who flinched away, nearly falling without her crutches. "I'm sorry, Her voice was barely audible, terror washing across her face. Alexander grabbed the laptop, ready to berate this street urchin for touching his $5,000 machine, when the numbers on the screen stopped him cold. His jaw slackened. "What did you do?" he asked, voice suddenly quiet as he scrolled through the modified projection model. "The derivative valuation was wrong," Lily whispered, tears welling. "And you didn't account for the patent expiration in 2027. I fixed it." She pointed with a grimy finger at the screen. "You'll save $788 million this way." Alexander stared at her, then at the screen, then back at her. The party around them continued, oblivious to the extraordinary moment unfolding. "That's impossible," he muttered, but his fingers flew across the keyboard, checking her work. Minutes passed as he verified each calculation, his face growing increasingly astonished. Across the lawn, Victoria Harrington narrowed her eyes. At 45, she was the picture of old money and privilege, her diamond necklace catching sunlight as she observed Alexander's interaction with the ragamuffin. Her son Bradley, 10 years old and already sporting the entitled attitude she'd cultivated in him, was currently throwing cake at a tree, bored by the adult gathering. "Who is that child?" Victoria asked her husband, who barely looked up from his phone. "Some beggar, I imagine. Reed should call security instead of engaging." But Victoria saw something in Alexander's expression that unsettled her. Something like wonder. And Victoria Harrington had never appreciated wonders that didn't directly benefit her. "Bradley!" she called sharply. "Come here!" The boy trudged over, chocolate smeared across his preppy outfit. "What, Mom? I'm busy." "Do you see that girl? The crippled one? I want you to go over there and show Mr. Reed how smart you are. Remember those math problems we practiced?" Bradley rolled his eyes. "Those were stupid." Victoria's perfectly manicured nails dug into her son's shoulder. "Go, now." Meanwhile, Alexander had pulled out a chair for Lily, who hesitantly sat down, still expecting to be punished. He pushed a plate of food toward her, which she eyed suspiciously. "It's for you," he said gently. "How did you learn to do financial modeling like that?" Lily took a small bite, trying to eat slowly despite her hunger. "I watch people through windows sometimes. At the library they have computers. I taught myself." "Where are your parents?" Her eyes dropped to her lap. "Don't have any." Alexander's next question was interrupted by Bradley's arrival, Victoria hovering several paces behind. "Hey, Mr. Reed," Bradley said loudly. "My mom says I should show you how smart I am. I can count to 1,000. Alexander barely glanced at him. "That's nice, Bradley." Victoria stepped forward, her smile brittle. "Alexander, you shouldn't encourage these people. She's obviously running some kind of scam. And you're wondering how a little disabled orphan could be smarter than your spoiled brat, aren't you?" Alexander thought, but didn't say. Instead, he looked at Lily, who was shrinking into herself. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily, you just saved my company from a catastrophic error." He turned to Victoria. "This scam artist just identified a nearly billion-dollar mistake that my entire team of Harvard MBAs missed. Ever wonder what happens when raw genius meets privilege and prejudice? When a forgotten child upends the world of the elite? We'll find out soon, but first let's see how Victoria handles being publicly embarrassed." Victoria's face flushed crimson. Being contradicted in her social circle was rare. Being contradicted in favor of a crippled street child was unprecedented. "Alexander, be reasonable," she hissed, lowering her voice to avoid a scene. "She probably just pressed random buttons. You're being taken in by an act." Alexander's eyes hardened. "An act?" "Victoria, do you understand differential equations? Asset depreciation algorithms, because this child does." He turned to Bradley, who was now picking his nose with dedicated focus. "Bradley, what's 12 times 15? The boy stared blankly. 100? "Lily," Alexander said softly. "Could you help Bradley with that?" 180, Lily whispered, eyes downcast, still fearful of the angry woman looming over her. Victoria's nostrils flared. "Any child can memorize multiplication tables. Bradley excels in other areas. He's already the best lacrosse player in his age group." "Square root of 784, Alexander asked, ignoring Victoria completely. 28, Lily answered without hesitation. "A party trick," Victoria snapped. "All right then." Alexander turned his laptop toward Lily. "This is a new problem. If you're running a scam, as Victoria suggests, you won't be able to solve it." Lily stared at the screen, where Alexander had pulled up a complex engineering problem related to structural integrity. The girl's eyes moved rapidly, processing the information. After exactly 43 seconds, she began typing, her small fingers dancing across the keyboard, despite her obvious malnutrition and exhaustion. Around them, other party guests were beginning to notice the strange tableau. Alexander Reed, financial wunderkind, huddled with a disheveled child on crutches, while Victoria Harrington hovered like a hawk, her face growing increasingly flustered. "Is that the Harrington boy?" someone whispered too loudly. "Isn't he in remedial classes at Westfield?" Victoria's head whipped around, trying to identify the gossip, but couldn't pinpoint the source. When she turned back, Lily had finished the problem. Alexander was examining her work, his expression one of pure astonishment. "This is," he began, then cleared his throat. "This is correct. And you've found a more efficient solution than the standard approach." "I like patterns," Lily said softly. "Numbers make sense. People don't." Something in her words struck Alexander deeply. He had always felt the same way, finding refuge in mathematics when human connections proved difficult. It was partly why, despite his wealth and status, he remained single at 30, married to his work instead. "Where do you live, Lily?" he asked gently. She hesitated, clearly afraid to answer truthfully. around. She's homeless, obviously, Victoria interjected, her voice dripping with disgust. Probably has lice, or worse. Alexander shot her a look that could have frozen the sun. I don't recall asking for your input, Victoria. He turned back to Lily, who was now trembling slightly, overwhelmed by a tension and conflict she wasn't equipped to handle. Are you in the system? Foster care? Lily shook her head. I ran away. They separated me from my brother. Victoria saw her opening. So she's a runaway. I should call child services immediately. She reached for her phone with a triumphant smirk. Wait, Alexander said sharply. Something about this child called to him on a level he couldn't explain. Lily, how old is your brother? Where is he now? Tommy's 8. They put him in a different home because no one wants to adopt. She glanced down at her twisted legs. No one wants kids like me. So we ran. But we got separated during a police sweep last month. I don't know where he is now. The raw pain in her voice silenced even Victoria momentarily. Alexander felt something shift inside him, a protective instinct he never knew he possessed. Can you really help me find my brother? Lily asked, a fragile hope dawning in her eyes for the first time. Before Alexander could answer, a security guard approached, summoned discreetly by one of Victoria's friends. Sir, is this child bothering you? We can remove her from the premises. Alexander stood abruptly. She's with me. The guard looked confused. Sir? I said she's with me. In fact, he made a split-second decision that would change multiple lives forever. She's under my protection now. Victoria gasped. You can't be serious. Alexander, you know nothing about this child. You can't just... What are you planning to do? Adopt her. She laughed, the sound brittle and forced. But Alexander wasn't laughing. He was calculating, as he did with all major decisions in his life. The remarkable mind he just witnessed needed nurturing, protection, opportunity. And the soul behind those intelligent eyes needed something he suddenly realized he could provide. Safety. Maybe I will, he said quietly, more to himself than to Victoria. Who would have thought that a corporate picnic in Central Park would lead to this moment? A moment where lives converge and trajectories change forever. And what would Victoria do now that her social standing was threatened by a child genius who made her son look ordinary by comparison? The game was just beginning, and Victoria Harrington never played to lose. But first, we need to understand exactly how far she's willing to go. And what about Lily's missing brother? Is he safe, or is he in more danger than anyone realizes? The next morning, Lily woke in a bed for the first time in months. Her small body was swallowed by the plush mattress in Alexander's guest room, Egyptian cotton sheets, a stark contrast to the cardboard and newspaper that had been her bedding. For several disorienting moments, she thought she was dreaming. Alexander had taken her to his Upper East Side penthouse the previous evening, after a whirlwind of phone calls to his lawyer and a promise to contact proper authorities. She had been too exhausted to process it all, falling asleep in the car before they'd even left Central Park. "Good morning," came a gentle voice from the doorway. Alexander stood there already dressed in a crisp suit, holding a tray with pancakes and orange juice. "How did you sleep?" Lily pushed herself upright, suspicious. In her experience, adults who seemed kind usually wanted something. "Why are you helping me?" Alexander set the tray down and pulled a chair up beside the bed. "Direct question. I appreciate that." He paused, considering. "2 reasons. First, you have an extraordinary mind that deserves to be nurtured, and second..." He hesitated, something vulnerable flickering across his features. "I know what it's like to be different, to see the world in a way others don't." "Are you a genius too?" Lily asked, cautiously taking a bite of pancake. Alexander smiled. "Not like you, but I understand patterns, systems. It's made me successful, but not always. Connected. To people," he shrugged. Anyway, my lawyer is working on temporary guardianship papers. And I've hired a private investigator to find your brother. Lily's eyes widened. Really? You'll find Tommy? I'll try my best. Now, after breakfast, a doctor will come to check on you. Just routine. Fear flashed across her face. No hospitals. They'll take me away. Alexander shook his head. No hospitals. She's coming here. Her name is Dr. Chen, and she specializes in orthopedics, bone problems, he clarified, seeing Lily's confusion. She might be able to help with your legs. They can't be fixed, Lily said flatly, a statement she'd heard from countless foster parents and social workers. I was born this way. Maybe, maybe not, but wouldn't it be nice to know for sure? While Lily finished her breakfast, Alexander stepped into his home office to make a call. His assistant answered immediately. Morning, sir. Victoria Harrington has called 4 times already. Alexander sighed. Block her and reschedule all my meetings this week. Family emergency. Family, sir. You heard me correctly, David. Meanwhile, across town, Victoria paced her marble-floored living room, phone clutched in her white-knuckled hand. He blocked me, Richard, she snapped at her husband, who was half listening while reviewing investment papers. Alexander Reed blocked my calls. Richard Harrington glanced up briefly. Can you blame him? You insulted a disabled child in front of half of New York's elite. Victoria whirled on him. That disabled child is a threat. Did you see how everyone was looking at us when Bradley couldn't answer that simple question? The Richardsons were practically smirking. Perhaps if you spent more time actually teaching Bradley instead of shuttling him between tennis lessons and play dates. Don't you dare criticize my parenting, Victoria hissed. I've given him every advantage. Except attention, Richard muttered, too quietly for his wife to hear. Victoria stalked to the window, mind racing. Something's not right about that girl, an orphaned genius who just happens to stumble into Alexander Reed's path. It's too convenient. What are you suggesting? I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out everything there is to know about this Lily person. No last name, no background. She's hiding something. And when I find it, Alexander will thank me for saving him from this obvious con. So, back at Alexander's penthouse, Dr. Chen was completing her examination of Lily's legs. Her expression remained professionally neutral, but Alexander caught the flicker of anger in her eyes. Can we talk privately? She asked him. In the hallway, safely out of Lily's earshot, Dr. Chen's composure cracked. Those aren't congenital deformities. Her legs were broken and improperly set, multiple times. Alexander felt physically ill. You mean? I mean someone deliberately hurt this child, repeatedly. And no medical professional ever reported it, which suggests she never received proper care. Dr. Chen's voice shook slightly. The good news is, with surgery and physical therapy, she could regain significant mobility, maybe even walk without crutches eventually. Schedule it, Alexander said immediately, whatever she needs. There's more, Dr. Chen continued. She's malnourished, has untreated asthma, and shows signs of prolonged physical neglect. Alexander, what exactly is your relationship to this child? He explained the bizarre circumstances of their meeting, watching the doctor's expression shift from skepticism to amazement. So she's not just physically resilient but intellectually gifted, despite everything she's endured. Dr. Chen shook her head in wonder. That's extraordinarily rare. Will you help me help her? Of course. But Alexander, she hesitated. The system failed this child catastrophically. Her injuries suggest systematic abuse that went completely unaddressed. If she has a brother out there. He might be in the same danger, Alexander finished grimly. I need to find him. Fast. Later that afternoon, while Lily napped, exhausted from her examination, Alexander's phone rang. It was his private investigator. Mr. Reed, I found preliminary information on the children, Lily and Thomas Morgan, Orphaned 2 years ago when their parents died in a house fire. They were placed in the foster system, but there's something strange. Their files are partially sealed. Sealed? Why? That's what's odd. It would make sense if there was a criminal investigation or abuse report, but the sealing order came from very high up. Someone with serious influence wanted information about these kids restricted. Alexander frowned. Can you break the seal? Not legally, but I did find the name of their last foster placement before they ran away. The Grants in Queens. And here's where it gets interesting. 6 foster children have been placed with the Grants over the past decade. All gifted, all with physical disabilities or chronic illnesses. That's a very specific pattern, Alexander said slowly. Exactly. And all these children either ran away or were reported as having accidents. One allegedly drowned. Another fell downstairs. A chill ran down Alexander's spine, and the authorities never investigated. The Grants are politically connected. Donations to the right campaigns, charity work with the right organizations. Their fostering looks like philanthropy on paper. But in reality, Mr. Reed, I think they were targeting specific children, and I think they're still looking for Lily and Thomas. Alexander glanced toward the room where Lily slept peacefully. Find Thomas, whatever it costs, and dig deeper on the Grants. I want to know everything. Do you think the Grants operation is isolated or part of something larger? And what could they possibly want with gifted children who also have physical limitations? The answers might be more disturbing than Alexander is prepared for. But first, we need to know, why is Victoria so obsessed with discrediting Lily? Is it merely wounded pride, or does she have connections to the people who want to find these children? Sometimes the most dangerous predators hide behind designer clothes and society smiles. The morning sun filtered through the blinds as Alexander sat at his kitchen island, staring at his laptop. 3 days had passed since he'd brought Lily home, and in that time, his life had transformed in ways he never imagined. The company acquisition was on hold, his executive team bewildered by their CEO's sudden family emergency. But Alexander couldn't focus on business, not after what he'd discovered. On the screen before him was a heavily redacted document his investigator had managed to unearth, a partial research grant application submitted by Dr. Eleanor Grant, foster mother to Lily and Thomas. The visible portions contained phrases like cognitive acceleration in physically compromised subjects and neural plasticity experiments, alongside a substantial budget request. The doorbell rang, interrupting his grim thoughts. Through the security monitor, Alexander saw Victoria Harrington's perfectly coiffed blonde hair and forced smile. He considered ignoring her but decided confrontation was inevitable. "Victoria," he said flatly upon opening the door. "What an unwelcome surprise." She pushed past him into the apartment, designer heels clicking on the marble floor. "Really, Alexander, blocking my calls. How childish. I've been busy. What do you want?" Victoria set her Birkin bag on the counter and extracted a manila folder. "To save you from making a terrible mistake." She slid the folder toward him. "That girl isn't what she seems." Alexander made no move to open it. "And you've appointed yourself my personal detective because we've known each other since prep school, and despite your current rudeness, I consider us friends." Her perfectly manicured finger tapped the folder. The Morgan children were part of a special education program before they became orphans. Their parents weren't random victims. Daniel Morgan was a neuroscientist researching cognitive enhancement. The house fire that killed them was ruled suspicious. Alexander felt his blood run cold, but maintained a neutral expression. How had Victoria obtained this information when his own investigator had struggled? And you know this, how? Victoria smiled thinly. Richard sits on the board of 3 medical research foundations. I have access. Why do you care, Victoria? What's your interest in a homeless child? Her smile faltered. I'm trying to protect you. This child could be dangerous, or at least connected to dangerous people. She leaned forward. Think about it. A mysteriously gifted child whose scientist father died under suspicious circumstances, who then ends up in foster care with another researcher. It's not coincidence. Across the apartment, a door opened. Lily stood in the hallway, her small figure supported by her crutches, wearing new pajamas Alexander had ordered for her. "You're that mean lady from the park," she said quietly. "Why are you here?" Victoria's expression shifted to something approximating warmth. "Hello, Lily. I'm just having a grown-up conversation with Mr. Reed." Lily's intelligent eyes narrowed. "About me?" "Sweetheart," Alexander intervened, "why don't you go back to your room? I'll bring you breakfast in a minute." "She knows something about Tommy," Lily said, ignoring him, her focus laser-sharp on Victoria. Her heartbeat and respiratory rate increased when she mentioned my parents, and she keeps touching her necklace when she's lying. Victoria's hand froze mid-fidget with her diamond pendant. "What an imagination," she said, but her voice had lost its confidence. "Victoria was just leaving," Alexander said firmly, moving toward the door, but Lily wasn't finished. "You have a daughter, don't you? Not just Bradley." The color drained from Victoria's face. "What did you say?" "There's a photo in your wallet. I saw it at the park when you took out your phone. A girl who looks like you, but with brown hair instead of blonde. She looks about 16, but you never mentioned her. Why?" Victoria snatched her bag, face contorted with fury. "You stay out of my personal life, you little—" "Enough!" Alexander cut in sharply. "Victoria, leave. Now." After practically shoving Victoria out the door, Alexander turned to find Lily trembling on her crutches, tears streaming down her face. Hey, it's okay," he said, kneeling beside her. "She's gone." "She knows where Tommy is," Lily whispered. "I'm sure of it." Alexander gently guided her to the couch. "Why do you think that?" Her eyes. When she talked about him, her pupils dilated, and she had too much information, stuff that should be sealed. Lily looked up at him desperately. "People think I don't notice things because I'm a kid, but I do. I notice everything." Alexander considered this. Lily's observational skills were clearly as exceptional as her mathematical abilities. "I believe you," he said finally, "but Victoria Harrington is a social climber with no scientific background. Why would she be involved in whatever this is?" "Money," Lily said simply. "The grants were paid to keep us. They talked about it when they thought we were asleep. They got extra money because I'm exceptionally promising." Alexander's phone buzzed with a text from his investigator. "Thomas Morgan located. Foster home in Connecticut. Call immediately." "I have news about Tommy," he told Lily gently. "But I need to make a call first to get all the details. Can you wait here?" In his office, Alexander listened in growing horror as his investigator explained the situation. Thomas was officially placed with a wealthy family in Greenwich, the Crawfords, who had connections to the same research foundations Richard Harrington was involved with. The boy was reportedly homeschooled and rarely seen in public. "It gets worse," the investigator continued. "I found financial transfers from a shell company to both the Grants and the Crawfords. The shell company is ultimately owned by Nexus Cognitive Systems, a private research firm specializing in artificial intelligence and neural networks. And the connection to Victoria Harrington? Her husband Richard is a major investor, but there's more. The Harringtons had a daughter, Sophia, diagnosed with a rare neurological condition at age 6. She disappeared from public view about 10 years ago. Officially, she attends a Swiss boarding school, but I can find no actual record of her enrollment or residence there." Alexander felt sick. Are you saying... I'm saying the Harringtons might have had personal experience with whatever program these gifted children are being used for. Whether as participants or beneficiaries, I don't know yet. B. After ending the call, Alexander returned to find Lily staring out the window at the Manhattan skyline, her small face set in determination. "They're experimenting on us, aren't they?" she asked without turning around. "That's why they want kids like me and Tommy, smart brains in broken bodies." Alexander sat beside her. "I think so. And I think Victoria Harrington knows exactly what's happening. Is Tommy safe right now?" Her voice was small but steady. "He's alive and being well treated, physically at least, but we need to get him out." Lily turned to him, her eyes ancient in her young face. "Then we need to make a trade." "A trade?" She nodded solemnly. "Me for him. It's what they really want." "Absolutely not," Alexander said firmly. "I'm not using you as bait." "You don't understand," Lily insisted. "I've been inside their system. I know how they think, how they operate. And I know something they don't know I know. Something my father hid before he died." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Something so valuable they'll do anything to get it. What secret could be worth endangering children for? And how far is this conspiracy reaching? Could Victoria's mysterious daughter be the key to understanding the true purpose behind these experiments? Sometimes the most important pieces of the puzzle are the ones deliberately hidden from view. But before we uncover that mystery, we need to understand what really happened the night Lily's parents died. Because in the ashes of that suspicious fire lies a truth that could change everything, if only Alexander can piece it together in time. Rain lashed against the windows of Alexander's penthouse as he paced the living room, phone pressed to his ear. Outside, lightning illuminated the New York skyline in harsh, intermittent flashes. "I don't care what strings you have to pull," he growled to his lawyer. "I want emergency custody of Thomas Morgan by morning. Yes, I understand it's irregular. That's why I pay you obscene amounts of money to handle irregular situations." Across the room, Lily sat cross-legged on the couch, an advanced physics textbook open beside her, forgotten. Her attention was fixed on a chessboard, where she was playing both sides, planning 12 moves ahead. But her mind wasn't truly on the game. It was on her brother and on the memories she'd been trying to suppress. "They're stalling," Alexander said after hanging up. "The Crawfords have apparently filed paperwork claiming Thomas is thriving in their care and that separating him from his stable environment would be traumatic." "It's a lie," Lily said quietly, moving a white bishop. "Tommy hates closed spaces because of what they did to us in the lab. The Crawfords' house has a basement facility. He must be terrified." Alexander sat beside her, careful not to disturb the chess pieces. "Lily, I need you to tell me everything you remember. About your parents, the experiments, all of it. I know it's painful, but it's the only way I can help Tommy." Lily's small hands trembled as she captured a black knight. "My father wasn't just studying cognitive enhancement. He was studying how trauma affects neural pathways in gifted children." Her voice became clinical, detached, a defense mechanism, Alexander realized. The Nexus program started as legitimate research, but then something changed. New people took over. They started testing limits, how much stress a subject could endure before cognitive abilities were compromised. "That's monstrous," Alexander whispered. "My father wanted to stop it. He gathered evidence, encrypted his findings, the night of the fire." She swallowed hard. "It wasn't an accident. They came for his research. My mother hid us in a crawl space. I heard the gunshots, smelled the gasoline." Her voice broke. Alexander fought the urge to pull her into a protective embrace, sensing she needed to finish. "Before they found us, my mother whispered a code to me. She made me memorize it, said it would lead to my father's evidence." A single tear slid down Lily's cheek. "I never told the Grants, never told anyone. But I think Victoria's husband knows I might have it. That's why they want me back." What about your legs? Alexander asked gently. Dr. Chen said they were deliberately broken. Lily nodded, her face expressionless now. Mobility control. They found that physical limitations made subjects easier to manage while preserving cognitive function. Perfect lab rats. Alexander felt rage building inside him, a primal protective fury unlike anything he'd experienced before. I won't let them touch you again, either of you. They won't stop, Lily said simply. The research is too valuable. It's about mapping exceptional neural pathways to create better artificial intelligence. Human brains are still the best computers ever made. The doorbell rang, startling them both. On the security monitor, Alexander saw Victoria Harrington again, this time accompanied by a tall, severe-looking man in an expensive suit. My husband, Lily whispered, peering at the screen. Richard Harrington. Alexander hesitated. I could send them away. No, Lily said, with surprising firmness. Let them in. I want to hear what they say. Maybe they'll reveal something about Tommy. Reluctantly, Alexander opened the door. Victoria swept in as if the earlier confrontation had never happened, all smiles and social grace. Richard Harrington followed, his cold eyes immediately scanning the apartment, lingering briefly on Lily. Alexander, forgive the intrusion, Victoria said smoothly. But after our discussion this morning, Richard felt we should speak directly about the Morgan children situation. I wasn't aware there was a situation to discuss, Alexander replied coolly. Richard stepped forward, extending his hand. Richard Harrington. I believe we've met at charity functions, though never properly spoken. Alexander shook the offered hand briefly. What exactly is your interest in Lily and her brother, Mr. Harrington? Direct. I appreciate that. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. I serve on several medical research boards. The Morgan children were part of a specialized program for gifted youth with physical challenges. Their disappearance from the system has caused concern. Concern for their welfare or concern for your research? Alexander asked bluntly. Something dangerous flashed in Richard's eyes. Both are intertwined. These children require specialized care and education that few are equipped to provide. He glanced at Lily. Hello, Lily. You're looking well. Lily stared back unflinchingly. Where's Tommy? Safe, Richard replied, and asking for you. Wouldn't you like to see him? Is that why you're here? To reunite them? Alexander asked, already knowing the answer. Victoria laughed, a brittle sound. Alexander, you're a brilliant financier, but you're out of your depth here. These children aren't ordinary orphans. They're part of a program that could revolutionize cognitive science and artificial intelligence. They're children, not lab rats, Alexander snapped. Richard's expression hardened. No one is suggesting they're lab rats. The program provides for their every need while advancing scientific understanding. It's a symbiotic relationship. Is that what happened to your daughter? Lily asked suddenly. Is she part of your symbiotic relationship too? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Victoria's face went slack with shock, while Richard's complexion flushed with anger. You don't know what you're talking about, child, he said, voice dangerously low, but Lily wasn't intimidated. Sophia Harrington, diagnosed with Batten disease at age 6, terminal prognosis, but she didn't die, did she? She became the first test subject, your own daughter. Victoria let out a small, strangled sound. Richard grabbed her arm to steady her. How could you possibly? Richard began. Because my father created the treatment protocol that saved her life, Lily continued relentlessly. But he never intended it to be weaponized. He wanted to heal, not exploit. Alexander watched in amazement as this 6-year-old girl commanded the room, her intelligence piercing through adult deceptions like a laser. What exactly had Daniel Morgan created that was so valuable? And if it saved the Harringtons' daughter, why were they now part of the system exploiting other children? Sometimes the deepest evil begins with good intentions. Richard and Victoria had faced the unthinkable, watching their daughter deteriorate from a neurological disease with no cure. Would you cross moral lines to save your child? And once those lines are crossed, how easy is it to keep going, to rationalize larger and larger transgressions? But the most urgent question remains: where is Tommy right now, and what's really happening to him? Because I suspect the Harringtons aren't telling the whole truth about his condition. And what about Alexander? Is he prepared for what will happen next? Because once you challenge people with this much power, there's no going back. The storm brewing outside is nothing compared to what's coming. The silence after Richard's threat was deafening. Alexander maintained a calm facade, though his heart hammered against his ribs. "You have until Friday noon," Richard repeated coldly. "Return Lily and Morgan's research or face consequences." After the Harringtons left, Alexander activated his penthouse's lockdown protocol. "No one enters without my explicit permission," he instructed his security team. Lily watched him, her young face unnaturally grave. "They're moving Tommy tonight," she said quietly. "How could you possibly know that?" Alexander asked. "Richard's watch. He checked it at specific moments when discussing Tommy. They're preparing him for something." Alexander marveled at her observational skills. "Do you know where they're keeping him?" "Not exactly. But my father's research might tell us." Lily's eyes grew distant. "Before she died, my mother whispered a poem to me. I thought it was comfort, but it might be a clue. Can you remember it? Where knowledge blooms eternal in the spring, beneath the dragon's watchful eye, a treasure waits on wings." Alexander frowned. "That's cryptic." The New York Public Library," Lily said suddenly. "Dad took us there often. I loved the reading room. And there are stone dragons outside." "Could he have hidden something there?" Lily's eyes widened. "The spring catalogue. The library publishes a special collection catalogue every spring. My father always ordered a copy." "We need to get to that library," Alexander said, already reaching for his phone. Hours later, they stood in the empty main reading room after hours, a security guard keeping respectful distance. "The 2023 Spring Catalogue," Lily whispered, fingers tracing along reference shelves. "There!" Alexander pulled down the heavy volume. "What exactly are we looking for?" "Wings," Lily answered. "Something with wings." They paged through until Lily gasped. "There!" She pointed to a small butterfly illustration on page 23. The butterfly effect, Dad's favorite scientific metaphor. Alexander examined it closely, discovering a tiny QR code hidden in the butterfly's wing pattern, nearly invisible unless you knew to look. "Your father was brilliant," he murmured, scanning the code. It revealed a string of encrypted characters. "It's a book cipher," Lily explained. "We need a specific book to decode it." As they left, neither noticed the black sedan across the street or the man photographing them. Victoria's private investigator smiled as he sent the images to his employer. "Target acquired," he texted. "They've found something at the library. Following now." Victoria's reply came immediately. "Don't lose them. Richard doesn't know about this. Report only to me." Have you ever wondered what happens when powerful people turn against each other, when a mother's guilt collides with a father's ambition? The game is changing, and Victoria Harrington is making moves no one, not even her husband, anticipates. But what book holds the key to Daniel Morgan's research? And more importantly, will they decode it in time to save Tommy from becoming the next experiment? Dawn found Alexander and Lily hunched over his laptop, surrounded by borrowed books. They'd been working for hours to crack Daniel Morgan's cipher, trying various books as the key. "Try A Brief History of Time," Lily suggested. Dad read it to me as bedtime stories. Alexander entered the parameters. The screen flashed. Decryption failed. "What about your father's journal?" Alexander asked. "Would he have used that?" Lily's eyes widened. His red notebook. He wrote in it every night. A quick call confirmed that Daniel Morgan's office contents had been placed in university storage. 2 hours later, Alexander returned empty-handed from Columbia University. The journal wasn't there, he reported. "The museum!" Lily exclaimed. "The American Museum of Natural History. We visited the Butterfly Conservatory the weekend before the fire. You think he hid it there? It's worth trying." Across town, Victoria Harrington sat in her car outside a private Connecticut facility marked only with a discreet brass plaque, Nexus Cognitive Solutions. "Mrs. Harrington," Dr. Eleanor Grant greeted her in the sterile lobby. "This is unexpected. I need to see both of them, Sophia and the Morgan boy." Dr. Grant hesitated. "Thomas is being prepped for transfer. As for Sophia, today isn't a good day." "I don't care," Victoria snapped. "I need to understand what we're dealing with." They descended to a sub-basement where Victoria saw her daughter through observation glass. Sophia sat cross-legged, surrounded by projected equations, solving problems at impossible speed. Small silver discs were embedded at her temples, and her eyes glowed with unnatural blue light. "What are those implants?" Victoria whispered. "Neural interfaces. They allow us to monitor and enhance her cognitive processing." "You said the treatments were non-invasive," Victoria's voice shook. "You never mentioned implants." "The disease was progressing faster than anticipated. We needed more aggressive measures." Dr. Grant remained clinically detached. "The results have exceeded expectations." "At what cost? Does she even recognize me?" Dr. Grant ignored the question. "The Morgan girl has even greater potential. Her abilities already rival Sophia's with implants." "How long has she been doing this?" 14 hours. Subjects can maintain peak performance for up to 20 hours before requiring rest." "Subjects," Victoria repeated hollowly. "That's my daughter." Dr. Grant's expression softened slightly. "Your daughter would have died without our intervention." Victoria turned away. "Show me Thomas Morgan." In another room, Tommy sat huddled in a corner, arms wrapped around his knees, terrified. "Why is he being transferred?" Victoria asked. "He's not responding to conventional protocols. We need a more direct approach." The meaning was clear. Implants, like Sophia's. And if his sister cooperates? "You promised Richard." "We'll honor the arrangement," Dr. Grant said smoothly. "The boy will be placed with a regular foster family after we've completed a few final tests." At the museum's Butterfly Conservatory, Alexandra and Lily searched carefully. "My father spent a long time by that bench." Lily pointed to a wooden seat near a blue Morpho display. Alexandra examined it, finding a small metal plate. "Donated by the Morgan family, 2020. "Your family donated this bench?" Lily nodded. "After Mom's cancer treatment, she loved butterflies." Alexander felt underneath, discovering a hidden compartment containing a red leather journal in a waterproof pouch. "You found it," Lily breathed. As Alexander retrieved it, he spotted a man watching them, the same man who'd followed them from the library. "We need to go," he said urgently. "Now." What terrifying secrets will Daniel Morgan's journal reveal? And what will Victoria do now that she's seen the truth of the Nexus program with her own eyes? Sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who was once your ally. Rain battered the windows of Alexander's penthouse as he worked to decode Morgan's journal. The cipher key had been hidden in the book's early pages, butterfly species names forming a substitution pattern. "It's working," Alexander said as decrypted text appeared. "Your father's research is becoming visible." The journal revealed that Daniel Morgan had discovered a revolutionary method to map neural processes. Originally developed to help patients with neurological diseases, the technology had been weaponized by Nexus after Morgan threatened to expose their unethical practices. "There," Alexander pointed as a file labeled "Contingency" appeared. A dossier on the entire Nexus program with damning evidence of human experimentation. My father prepared this to expose them if anything happened, Lily said softly. Alexander scrolled through the documents, his expression darkening. This goes beyond Nexus. Government contracts, military applications. They're developing technology to harvest neural patterns from gifted children for AI systems. Sophia Harrington was the first success, Lily added. Batten disease reversed through neural reconfiguration. But it changed her, rewired her brain to prioritize cognitive function over emotions. A sharp knock interrupted them. Alexander's head of security looked urgent. "Sir, we've detected a security breach. Someone's trying to override the building's systems." Alexander's phone rang. Richard Harrington. "I know you found Morgan's journal," Richard said without preamble. "Our deadline has moved up. You have 1 hour to deliver Lily and the research, or we'll take direct action." "You're threatening a child?" Alexander said incredulously. "I'm preserving the future of human intelligence," Richard countered. "We're creating the next evolutionary leap in consciousness. By torturing children, by utilizing exceptional neural architectures. Do you know how rare minds like Lily's are? 1 in billions. We can't waste such resources on ordinary lives. And what happens to the children afterward? Like your daughter?" A telling silence followed. 1 hour, Richard finally said, "or we take everything by force." After hanging up, Alexander turned to his security chief. "Activate evacuation protocol Delta, helicopter on the roof in 15 minutes. "You have a plan?" Lily asked. Alexander nodded. "We're going to expose everything, but first we need to get Tommy." At the Nexus facility, Victoria watched her daughter through the glass, sickened by the implants and vacant expression. What had she and Richard allowed to happen? "She's not in pain," Dr. Grant assured her. "The interface creates a euphoric state. Many subjects reported as pleasurable." "Stop calling them subjects," Victoria snapped, "and stop lying to me. I've read the surveillance reports. I know what you did to prepare these children." Dr. Grant's professional mask slipped. "Necessary conditioning. The human brain resists direct manipulation. Creating controlled trauma in physically limited subjects makes neural pathways more adaptable." Victoria felt ill. "I want it reversed. All of it. I want my daughter back." Dr. Grant laughed. "Mrs. Harrington, your daughter's neural architecture has been fundamentally altered. The Sophia you knew ceased to exist when we initiated the primary sequence. You never told us that. Your husband understood the implications." The realization hit Victoria like a physical blow. Richard had known. He had sacrificed their daughter's humanity for her survival. "Where's Thomas Morgan?" Victoria demanded. "Being prepped for initial integration. The process begins in 40 minutes. "Integration? You're putting implants in him already." "Plans have accelerated. Mr. Harrington ordered the full protocol implemented immediately." Victoria looked again at her daughter and made a decision. "I need to see the Morgan boy, alone. Richard wants me to evaluate his condition before integration." Dr. Grant hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. No more. In a secure room 2 floors below, Victoria found Tommy curled on a narrow bed, trembling. "Thomas," Victoria said gently. "My name is Victoria. I'm going to help you." The boy regarded her suspiciously. "You're one of them." "I was, but not anymore." She glanced at her watch. "We don't have much time." "Would you betray everything you've built to save a child who isn't yours?" Victoria Harrington is about to answer that question. And what of Alexander and Lily? Can they reach Tommy before the integration begins? Alexander's helicopter touched down on a private airstrip in Connecticut. A van waited nearby with his investigator at the wheel. "The facility is heavily secured," the investigator reported. "But I've identified a maintenance entrance with lighter protection." "Boo, we have 20 minutes before Richard realizes we're not coming," Alexander said, checking his watch. "What's the plan?" Lily asked from the back seat. "We get your brother out, then we release your father's evidence to every news outlet simultaneously." "They'll discredit it," Lily said. "They have powerful connections. That's why we need something they can't deny." Alexander looked determined. "We need Sophia Harrington." The service entrance to the Nexus facility was exactly where indicated, a nondescript door behind a dumpster with a single security camera. Alexander's security chief disabled it quickly. 15 minutes until the system registers the camera failure," he warned as they slipped inside. Alexander had brought only his most trusted team. Lily had insisted on coming despite his objections. "I know the layout," she'd argued, "and Tommy trusts me. He might panic if strangers try to grab him." The sterile white corridors were eerily quiet. Following Lily's directions, they moved toward the lower levels. "There should be a stairwell on the right," Lily whispered. "It leads directly to—" She froze as voices approached. Alexander pulled her into an alcove as two lab-coated technicians passed. "Accelerated timeline is unprecedented. Dr. Grant isn't happy. Orders came from Harrington himself, something about the Morgan girl being compromised." They continued downward, reaching a corridor with numbered doors. "Tommy would be in room 7, Lily whispered. "That was always the prep room." As they approached, the door suddenly opened. Victoria emerged, supporting a small, frightened boy. "You!" Alexander hissed, reaching for his concealed weapon. Victoria raised one hand. "Wait, I'm helping him escape." Her expensive blouse was torn, her appearance disheveled. "Why would you help us?" Alexander demanded. "Because I've seen what they did to my daughter. I can't let it happen to another child." Thomas Morgan, small for 8 years, with intelligent eyes like his sister, spotted Lily. "Lily!" He broke free from Victoria, throwing himself into his sister's arms. The siblings clung to each other, trembling. "How touching!" came a cold voice. Richard Harrington stood at the end of the corridor with security personnel. "Victoria, I'm disappointed." "Necessary?" Victoria's voice rose. "You didn't just sacrifice our daughter's future, Richard. You sacrificed her soul." Richard's face hardened. "I saved her life. You preserved her body while destroying everything that made her Sophia. Our daughter is gone, Richard. That thing upstairs with the implants isn't Sophia anymore." Pain flashed across Richard's features before vanishing. "Security Protocol Omega," he said into a wrist device. Alarm klaxons immediately began wailing. "Take the children and go," Victoria urged Alexander. "I'll hold them off." "Come with us." Victoria shook her head. "I need to get Sophia. I can't leave her." "You'll never reach the secure levels now," Richard said. "The facility is locking down." Victoria turned to her husband. "You forgot who designed the security protocols, Richard. I built backdoors into every system." She held up a keycard. "Even yours." Richard's eyes widened. "Victoria, don't—" She was already entering commands at a security panel. Throughout the facility, doors began unlocking with synchronized clicks. "Full system override," Victoria announced. 7 minutes before emergency power reroutes control." Richard lunged for her, but Alexander's security chief intercepted him with a precise blow that sent him crumpling to the floor. "Get the children out," Victoria ordered. "I'm going for Sophia." Alexander hesitated briefly before nodding. "We'll meet you at the extraction point." As they raced toward the exit, Lily looked back at Victoria. "She's going to die, isn't she?" Alexander couldn't lie. "I don't know. But she's trying to save her daughter, just like your parents tried to save you. In desperate moments, people reveal their true nature. Victoria chose redemption, but will she find it? And what price will be paid for the children's freedom?" Dawn broke over Washington, D.C., as Alexander sat in a secure Justice Department conference room. For 36 hours, he had provided evidence and testimony about the Nexus program. Federal prosecutors and intelligence officials exchanged troubled glances as they reviewed Daniel Morgan's files. "This goes beyond criminal enterprise," said Assistant Attorney General Lawson, removing her glasses. "It's a matter of national security." Alexander nodded. The neural harvesting technology was being developed for military applications. Enhanced AI using children's neural patterns. And the Harringtons? Richard is in custody. Victoria. Alexander paused. Search teams found no trace of Victoria or Sophia in the facility. He couldn't help hoping Victoria had managed to save her daughter. Her rebellion had created the distraction they needed to escape until federal agents arrived. And the children? Safe. I've arranged temporary emergency custody. The debriefing continued for another hour. In the hallway outside, his lawyer waited with updates. "The custody petition is proceeding on an expedited basis," she reported. "Given the extraordinary circumstances, the judge is inclined to grant emergency guardianship." Alexander felt relief wash over him. "And the Nexus operation?" 17 arrests so far. The technology has been contained, but there are concerns about digital copies. Some neural mapping data may have been uploaded to servers we haven't located. The thought of children's neural patterns existing as digital copies in unknown servers was horrifying. A government car took Alexander to a secure safe house in Virginia where the children were being kept. As he entered, he heard something unexpected. Laughter. Tommy sat on the floor playing a board game with a federal agent, giggling as he moved his piece. Lily sat nearby, her crutches propped against the sofa, a physics book open beside her. She looked up, her face brightening. "Alexander, did you tell them everything? Will they stop the bad people?" He sat beside her. "Yes, the Nexus program is being shut down. Many people have been arrested." "And Richard Harrington?" "In custody, but Victoria and Sophia are missing." Something flickered in Lily's expression. "They got out," she said with certainty. "How can you be sure?" Lily shrugged. "Victoria loved her daughter. Love makes people capable of impossible things." The wisdom in her words struck Alexander deeply. He had never considered himself capable of love, yet in 1 week he had risked everything for 2 children he barely knew. "The judge will let you stay with me," he told her, "both of you, if that's what you want." Tommy looked up eagerly. "Forever?" "For now. And if things go well, maybe forever." "Like adoption?" Lily asked directly. "Yes, like adoption." That evening, as the children slept, Alexander received a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for saving them. We're safe. S is improving without the implants. Some things can be undone after all. V." Attached was a photo of Victoria, hair now dark and cut short, with a teenage girl who must be Sophia. The girl's eyes were clearer, though still somewhat vacant. They stood on what looked like a European street. Alexander deleted the message immediately. If Sophia could recover, perhaps the damage wasn't permanent. His thoughts were interrupted by Lily, appearing in doorway in oversized pajamas. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head, coming to sit beside him. "I keep thinking about what happens next." "What do you want to happen?" She considered this seriously. "I want to finish my father's work. The real work, helping people with neurological diseases." Alexander nodded. "When you're older." "And until then?" He put his arm around her small shoulders. "Until then, you get to be a kid, you and Tommy both." She leaned against him, a gesture of trust that meant more than any business success. "You know," he said softly, "I always thought my legacy would be financial. Buildings with my name, companies I built. I never imagined that your legacy would be us," Lily finished. "Yes, exactly that." Above them, a shooting star traced a brilliant path. Tommy appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Did I miss it?" he asked, climbing onto Alexander's other side. Miss what? The family part, Tommy mumbled, already half asleep. Lily said we're going to be a family. Alexander felt something shift inside him, the final piece of a puzzle he hadn't known he was solving. Yes, he said, holding both children close. We're going to be a family. 3 broken souls finding wholeness together. Isn't that what family really means in the end? As for the Nexus program's technology, well, some genies can't be completely returned to their bottles, but that's a story for another day. For now, let's allow these 3 their happy ending. They've certainly earned it, don't you think?